Hi there. I'm Joseph. I study philosophy at Cambridge, and today, as part of the Oxford Economics channel, I'm going to be taking you through my personal statement. I know that it's a bit weird as to whether personal statements are still going to be happening in coming years, but hopefully this will still be of help to those of you either trying to get in for philosophy at Cambridge, or PP at Oxford, or HSPS, or those sort of courses, more humanities courses. With the philosophy. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So who am I? I study philosophy, as I say, at Cambridge. I'm at St John's College. I have just completed my second year. I'm going into my third year, and yeah, I mean, that's all I'll bother with. Maybe not too much about my personal life at the moment. Why philosophy? So I wasn't always intent on going for philosophy. My mother's actually a philosophy teacher, so maybe that contributed. But I think particularly in my A levels, I really got into the philosophy, and as you'll see with my personal statement, I think found it out of an original interest in politics. I decided I sort of got more and more into philosophy. I sort of tried to look further into some of the questions that current affairs sort of ask. And why Cambridge? Well, this is a slightly easier question to answer. Oxford don't offer straight philosophy. So when I was not so sure about what I was doing, maybe I was thinking a bit about going for languages, particularly Italian, and they offer Italian and philosophy at Oxford, so I was thinking about doing that. But as I started to realise that philosophy was the subject I wanted to do and was what I was really interested in, particularly the Cambridge course, I focused in on Cambridge because that's where you can do straight philosophy out of the two universities. When did I start preparing? So this again isn't necessarily too easy an answer, too easy a question to answer, because what I found was when I properly started preparing was that some of the stuff that I'd done before was particularly helpful. I think I probably knew that I wanted to apply for philosophy towards the end of my lower sixth or year 12, maybe a bit earlier, and I had lockdown at the time. So I actually read a lot and got more and more into my philosophy, and I think that helped me realise that I was going for the right subject. I think the one thing that the preparation for Oxford can show you is whether you're going for the subject that's actually best suited for you. Because if you don't enjoy doing lots of the reading or being interested or sort of looking further into the subject, then probably isn't the one that you should be studying at university. Now, when did I start writing my personal statement? So I've watched Henry's video on this, and one thing that Henry says is sort of, it seemed that when everyone came back from summer that everyone had written theirs. And I think I had a rather similar experience in that I had these general ideas, I had certain books that I wanted to include or certain things I'd done that I might want to include, but I hadn't exactly got, I definitely didn't have a personal statement written. And I remember my tutor at the time sort of going, Joseph, do you want to, hurry up? And I did. And I suppose leading on to the next one, how did I go about writing it? I think because I felt that everyone else had been writing it, I sort of thought I had to, I'd sort of speed up and get on it. So what I did was I sort of splurged words onto a page. And I actually would recommend this almost because you've got the word limit that you need to think about, and you've got all of these things you want to say about yourself, particularly often with Oxford things. Often you've done quite a lot. I wouldn't think about the word limit. I'd actually just basically write down in not very good English, what have I done? Okay. And then work from there, because then you've got everything on a page. You've got some form of document. You've got that. And then essentially I was just tweaking, moving paragraphs about, cutting certain things that actually I thought maybe that's not that useful. So quite a few drafts, but a lot of it was me, waking up before lessons, had a few minutes, go and have a look at that. If I got bored in, a maths class, go and have a look at it again, see, do I like it? Are there things I want to do? Highlighting a bit, not highlighting a bit. And I think eventually, it probably took me about 2-3 weeks, but I certainly had ideas of what I was going to write before, and maybe I had a few tweaks I did afterwards. But I was done before the end of September, which I really recommend to everyone, because after that you might have exams, you want to prepare for, or just, you might want to be done with what is essentially often quite a boring task. And and it just gives you has a little less time pressure with it because you want to make sure you've done as well as you can. So I think this is a key section before we start going through, and essentially it's about making sure that every sentence or every paragraph or every phrase counts. Making sure it's useful. It's quite common you'll see people mentioning a book that they've read. Well, okay, all well and good that someone's read a book, but what has that book taught you? How did that book inspire you to do more in your subject? What did that book lead you to next? Have you been on, are you engaging with the reading just as much as you're sort of just reading it? It's all well and good having read a book, but actually being able to say, I read this and then I went on to that and I could compare this with that and all of that, or this inspired me to go and do this. It's really good. And I think, it's really important that what you're focusing on is making you seem suitable for the course, showing that you're someone who's interested, showing you someone that's got potential, showing you someone that wants to learn. And I think how does it show that, and showing the course is suitable for you. So, you'll have a look at the course, you'll see, okay, well, I'm really interested in this part of philosophy. Is this part of philosophy something that this course focuses on? And are you someone that can, read a lot, does like working, it does have genuine interest, just even outside of the academic things in this subject. They discuss supercurricular, I think, a bit. I don't know if that's an official Oxford term, but what are you doing above and beyond just your natural academic subject? So it's really important that you try and put yourself in the best light and show how your research in the subject has inspired you to go and do other things. And another key point is, as much as you might want to say that, as much as one of the things you might learn is something terribly complex and think it sounds terribly grand in your personal statement, it's also worth thinking about, can you speak about that in an interview? So in my interview, for example, I had a lot of in my interview there were quite a few questions. In one of my interviews, there's quite a few questions about my personal statement, and I remember thinking, I remember thanking myself that I hadn't necessarily, I sort of edited, at the end I was like, can I actually back that up? Maybe not, I'm going to change that. And I think there are certain examples maybe we can come back to during this that are, that are in my personal statement that maybe, we can go through. So I'm just going to go straight in now with my personal statement. And I'd like to sort of say, I haven't read it too much. I've just sort of copy and pasted some of it in. I've got some notes on it, but I'm going to go through it. Hopefully I find some criticisms of myself too. It definitely wasn't the perfect personal statement. But hopefully it is of help to those of you who, particularly for a subject like philosophy at Cambridge, which isn't very similar to anything you'll have studied before, don't have much guidance. And I know I'd have killed for some more guidance. So here you go. So what isn't going to be very helpful maybe to you all is the fact that I start with a quote. Now that's meant to be not something you don't do. But one thing the reason I thought this was fine is I came across this when I was reading, I think it's History of Western Philosophy by Bertrand Russell. And I sort of thought for a while, can I include that? And originally I thought, can I just not make it quotation? But I would advise if you are going to quote something, don't plagiarise because Cambridge aren't that keen on it. I assume Oxford are the same. And I sort of thought, okay, well, I quite like this as a start. I quite like it for grounding me. And what I wanted to do with my personal statement, and you don't have to do this at all, but is present a sort of journey that I've had through philosophy, because I think this was very much how I felt about it. I was saying before that, why philosophy? Well, actually, I sort of read more and more and got more and more into it. And I sort of wanted to show that. And as I said before, I was originally interested in politics, so that helped me to get... So I was quite honest. I said, look, I got into my philosophy because I wanted to answer some more political questions, and then I got really interested in a lot more questions which popped up. I mean, there's sort of the old adage about philosophy that the only way you can answer a question is by leaving 10 more unanswered or 10 more questions spring up. But I also wanted to. I was originally, I think, going to use this sort of tricolon at the end of this paragraph at the end of the whole personal statement. I chose not to because it didn't quite work. But I want to sort of say, well, this is the impact it's had on me as a whole before I got into sort of the nitty-gritty of different subjects. You definitely don't have to do an introduction like this. you'll see that it kind of works with the way that I did my personal statement, but some people want to get a lot more meaty straight away, which I wouldn't necessarily argue with, but this is one way you can do it. So anything more? Oh, the other point is, I was also applying at certain universities for politics and philosophy, or occasionally PPE. I think once for PPE. And so by mentioning politics, which you see come up in the next paragraph as well, it meant that I wasn't completely ignoring that aspect. So there was a slight tactical element to including that. But I think most of it was just me being genuine. So now this is a bit more, so we're now into the sort of more meaty bit of the personal statement. Now, as you can see, I start by going, okay, there were these two books that I read. And you know, what I really got told, I think originally I probably put, I read On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. This, to argue with this, I read The Social Contract by, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, if I get his first name correct. But, you know, actually there are ways you want to maybe pinpoint bits that really appeal to you, show points of disagreement. They're not expecting you to be an expert on either of these books. But, you know, if you can think, well, if two things do strike you when reading these books, then let's put that in, show what that brought you to. I mean, I think liberty is quite a classic subject. I mean, definitely one of the subjects which got me into philosophy. So if you see, as a starting point, I read On Liberty and the Social Contract, comparing the ideas of each on civic and individual liberty. And I was struck by the inherent contradiction of sacrificing freedom to ensure more of it. And another thing here is I'm not actually necessarily stating a view. Maybe I am by saying this inherent contradiction idea, but I'm not really saying anything too controversial, but I'm still showing engagement with the content of these books. And if you look, I've got a direct example of the impact which the book had on me. So I went and ran in the school election as a candidate for the Libertarian Party. Now, is that strictly true? You know, I definitely, I'd say probably, but I had something I'd done, which when I did it, I didn't think, oh, this is going to be useful for my application. But actually, it was something I could point to and say, oh, this could be, here's an impact of the philosophical research I've done on, and here's something that's inspired me to do. Similarly, I then look at, with Rousseau, that took me to the Unabomber Manifesto, which even, maybe some of you non-philosophers might know, some of you philosophers might not know. It's perhaps not the most, it might not be the sort of height of philosophical literature, but it's an interesting book. And again, it allowed me to, it showed links between the subjects and showed how I hadn't just sort of gone, right, here are 5 books I should read in philosophy. I'd sort of followed where my interest and my, the questions were, where the questions were arising, where my interest was taking me. And then in the end of the paragraph, I sort of wrap it up by going, okay, well, actually, I quite liked this aspect of Nozick's Anarchy, State and Utopia. And I chose the use of this book here is not the classic way in which Anarchy, State and Utopia will be cited. It will usually be cited in terms of, its very libertarian conclusion. But actually, it sort of showed maybe some engagement and something I could back up by talking about this idea of establishing a state, which is another aspect of the book and something I was asked about in my personal statement. And again, I was quite happy that it was something I could back up, having had to wade through all these boring pages of Anarchy, State and Utopia. But there you go. And again, in the end, I go, well, okay, I went to this festival, the How the Light Gets In Festival, which I'd recommend to anyone applying who, it might have already happened this year, but maybe next year. I'd recommend going and looking at that. It's an offshoot of the Hay on Wye Festival in Wales. I don't know if it's now in person again. Mine was virtual, which made it a bit easier. But it's a really good way to engage with some of the debates you may have been reading about, might be interested in philosophy, and they always have some amazing speakers there. But again, it showed that I was being active outside of my normal academic research and doing stuff above and beyond.